Good morning. It's a privilege to talk to you today, and I want to switch gears a little bit. So we're going to go from behind the meter to the front of the meter, and we're going to talk about some ideas for how we can use information to drive the next generation of green building market transformation. And so obviously one of the starting points for this conversation is that today a lot of what we do with green building is defined by a plaque. It's defined by an aspiration. When we see a plaque, when we see something that is compliant with LEED, we understand that that is something we aspire to and a note of distinction in the marketplace. That is also a tool for project teams to aspire to. It drives change by providing a target, something at the end of the rainbow, for project teams to aspire to. But our effort today is to talk about the data behind that plaque and how the data behind that plaque can become the fuel for the next generation of market transformation. And the data that I'm most interested in, the data that I want to inspire you about, is the data that comes from projects. In the beginning, we didn't have much data. In fact, we had almost nothing. We had an idea of best practices. That plaque represented, do these things and we'll recognize you. But over time, one project led to another, led to another, led to another, and ultimately it turned into a global movement. And that the data underlying that global movement, we are at an inflection point. We are at the moment when there is sufficient information underlying those projects to become the fuel for the movement itself. We could not have done this a decade ago. We had an absence of data and an abundance of piss and vinegar. Now we have an abundance of data and we have a lot of scale to achieve. The data that is coming off of those projects today is a fire hose. It's not managed, it's not corralled. Tomorrow, our ability to manage that data will be the underpinnings of the movement. So I want to focus you on two dimensions of that stream of data that's coming off those projects, the two that matter most to me. The first one is the experience of humans in these buildings. The reason we are building these buildings is for people to experience them, and the energy that we are using to provide that experience. And we're going to start with energy because that's the thing that we have the best understanding about and is the thing that's probably on the top of our minds. And so what do we know about energy today? When we unpack that plaque today, what's behind it with regard to energy? For new construction, we understand that we are trying to create buildings that are superior to code, that are reaching above code, such as ASHRAE. In operations, we are trying to recognize buildings that are at the top of the scale with regard to an operational benchmark, like Energy Star. And day to day, we can now give that information back every year in the form of annual reports that tell you where you stand, how you did, how much you improved. That's good, but what's coming? Now, a substantial fraction of our buildings have dashboards where we can go from annual reports, periodic data boys, to minute by minute. I know some of you in the room are engaged with that. Behind those dashboards, we have increasingly granular information, space by space, minute by minute, second by second, point by point through these complex systems. And going the other direction, we're now able to roll that information up block by block across entire metro areas to get a comprehensive picture, all the way from an individual sensor to an entire city. That's the nature of energy behind that plaque today. Energy by itself is great, but the reason that we use energy is to create experience. And so when we talk about the elements of what is the experience of people in this place, we talk about accessibility, controllability of systems, daylight, views, thermal, acoustics. We track each of those things. In that data stream, in that fire hose, are all of these things. And we know that when we track them, that occupants like them, that they deliver superior performance. Relative to Energy Star buildings alone, these green buildings, LEED buildings, deliver better occupant experiences. Daylight, views, accessibility, controllability of systems. That's great. That's the state of the shelf today. How do we take the same expectation for data that we have with energy and extend it into human experience? How do we do that? To me, the ultimate sensor of human experience is you and me. And when you combine you and me with a computer, I have the ability to act as a sensor. And over time, I can become a sensor. And so that person sitting at a desk in front of a computer, in our world, what we've been able to do is start asking that person questions about their experience. Too hot, too cold, how'd you get to work today? What's going on with ventilation? Do you have a headache? And we can turn that into a data stream that begins to match the granularity that we see in energy. We can begin to match our energy consumption to a stream of data about experience. That alone is exciting. But what we want to do with that is it's really easy to understand how that goes into how we can take mobile technology and bring that into your wider universe. And increasingly, how we can take specific technologies like this Fitbit and actually track your health and well-being in real terms, in real spaces, over millions of people at the same time. What does it look like when you do that? When you do that, you go from prescriptive measures of walkability or accessibility, like sidewalk is this big, the metro stop is that far away, to these kind of images. This is the recreational opportunity in Central Park measured by people actually running there. You'll notice the reservoir in the middle of Central Park. And we have an information infrastructure capable of scaling that information to the global scale. So for energy and for experience, we have this moment to unpack these plaques and discover profound, deep, spatially and temporally extensive information about what's going on in these environments. The question is, how do we use it to be the rocket fuel for market transformation? Let's think about a bunch of buildings. Today, we can use these mechanisms to learn about what's going on in the experience of people in these buildings, how much energy they're using, and what we can do is roll it up. We can roll it up into a distribution to say, these folks are good, these folks are better, and these folks are best. And I can do that not just on an occasional basis, on an episodic basis, the way that I can do it today, but I can do it minute by minute, second by second, to convey what's the distribution of performance and where do you fit. And then I can ask some powerful and simple questions. I can ask how. How are the better and best actors in the system doing it? How are they delivering, whether it's energy use or experience, how are they delivering that? And on the basis of how they're delivering it and that they're delivering it, we can provide recognition and reward. That's all we've ever done with those big shiny plaques on the side of these buildings, is provide recognition and reward for some measure of accomplishment and performance and achievement, except for now, we can fuel that recognition and reward by channeling that fire hose. At the same time, I can flip and deal with the other side of the distribution. If you are not accomplishing as much as your peers, why? What is the barriers? How can we overcome those barriers through inspiration, assistance? What is it we need to move these projects? Simply put, how do we take a project that is here, how do we move it to over here? We have an opportunity to use this data to show those projects that it's possible, to provide them with information about their peers, their competitors, and to force this transition, to drive this transition at time scales and at levels of transparency that we have never been able to do before. That's what comes from unpacking the plaque. That's what comes from using the data behind the plaque as the fuel for the next generation of market transformation. Appreciated the chance to share that with you, and hope you have a great day.